right, welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and he is Gary Sheffield Jr. This is the Yankees Unloaded, episode 90. Sorry we missed you guys last episode, but we did decide to basically just wait. This game was going to start at 1, which is 10 your time, Gary. So it just wasn't really, we had to record late, and there was no point to it at that rate. So here we are. Man, I'm not going to lie. I definitely missed baseball. I just didn't miss this type of baseball.
Yeah, fun game today.
Nestor Cortez, man. He's been great at home all year, and he's been really bad on the road. My biggest thing was, why on earth did Aaron Boone shuffle the rotation to make Nestor Cortez the second option? I don't get that. Now, Heel is the fifth. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. You had that full week just about. I don't know why you would make Nestor the number 2, but this is somebody you can't rely on, on the road. And, unfortunately at home, he was overdue to have a start like this. He's been really good. And, he got shelled today by the Rays, who are basically fighting that 500 line. A lot of people think that they could, maybe run off a few wins and even stay in this thing. They seem to be more likely to sell at the deadline, so good on them, I guess, for realizing where they are. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this lineup and I'm just like, you know what, I'll give them credit. Wells was the cleanup today, although you should have swapped him and Rice, I would say. Narvaez, shout out to him, got his first big league hit. Not too shabby there. Gleyber Torres is now past Verdugo in batting average, Gary, which we did talk about. That was going to happen.
Alex Verdugo. Let's actually circle his name here for just a second.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to Nestor Cortez, because I thought Nestor's star was just dismal.
It was
mentally,
terrible.
Physically, everything about it was bad. Okay, so Alex Verdugo. If I had $1 for every time he hit a ground ball to second base, I'd be a millionaire. That's what we see. We pick on DJ LeMahieu, who should be picked on, to be clear.
Yeah.
Right? Highly paid to be an excelling player for this team. It's just a routine ground ball every time I watch. Okay. We're not working deep into counts. We get hitters' pitches, right? And you would expect to do damage at some point, because you have to remember what we mentioned about Alex Verdugo. And that is that Alex Verdugo typically in Boston was a great first half hitter, dismal in the second half, terrible, absolutely putrid. But I'm sure the Yankees or other organizations in general probably thought, this isn't exactly who he is. We can probably get a little bit more out of him. Put him in a position where he's being focused on more, because as great as fans or as Boston fans are and how much they pay attention, Yankees fans pay attention more. Okay. We pay attention to the details more than any other fan base. And you would assume that would help most baseball players. It has not helped Alex Verdugo in any way. Okay. Alex Verdugo's been bad for a month and a half. It's been a long time, Jake. And we're talking about a player who's hitting 231. You mentioned his power numbers like maybe a week ago, and that they had just had to take a nosedive, right? He's not hitting for average. He's not hitting for power. He blew a game defensively in Baltimore. Okay. So when you combine all these things, it leads me to saying that another player needs to step in, at the very least in the short term. Okay. You might believe that Alex Verdugo can turn this around. I personally, I don't know what they're seeing, but everyone's entitled to that opinion. But you cannot tell me this player is the best option that the Yankees have in their organization in left field. There's no way you can justify that. And by the way, Jake, when we talk about the Yankees' top prospects, we don't really consider Jason Dominguez a top prospect. We consider him a sure thing. He's down in the minors because of his injuries. That was why he was there in the first place.
Yeah.
But Spencer Jones is our number 1 prospect. Okay. This is another outfielder. You mean to tell me, is Spencer Jones, how old is he? Is he 22, 23?
I think he's 22.
He's 22 years old. Which prospect is it in any other team system that is their number 1 prospect, is 22 years old, and they've got a failing player at the same position, and they don't even think to call up that player.
He
That's
just
the
turned
position that we're
23
in.
in May.
There you go. So Spencer Jones is not a young player. This is not a young player. This is a 22, 23-year-old player, especially a top prospect. They should be knocking on the door to at the very least get an opportunity at the big league level. And Jake, we were talking earlier this year, like we don't really see Spencer Jones getting called up. Like we kind of predicted that he would sit down there and wait, right, based on his level of production. But has Alex Verdugo done really anything to block him the last 2 months? In my opinion, Jake, there's been none. There has been nothing done by a lot of these position players, especially the infield, but even left field. There's nothing being done to block these prospects. If you believe in them, call them up. If you don't, then shouldn't that conversation, because we're going to talk, Jake, in this show about Michael Kay's statement. And that statement from Michael Kay essentially saying, just to paraphrase, every single player in the Yankee system outside of Jason Dominguez should be available. Okay. That's what he said. And the reason being was that the Yankees have described this season as a win now season. Now, that based on the context of who they've acquired in Juan Soto is clearly our second best player on the team. At times, he's our best. But we don't know if Juan Soto is going to be back with the Yankees. We have no idea. We think he should be back, clearly. Okay. This is a 25-year-old superstar, clearly built for New York. You know, he's built to play anywhere, to be quite frank. But having said this, Jake, we don't know what Hal's going to do. Hal might offer him, hey, here's 10 years. We don't really want to go past age 35 season. He might offer what's fair. Okay. And a lot of times what's fair doesn't get you the player. Okay. And Hal Steinbrenner might play PR and say, well, we just gave out this contract to Aaron Judge. We're going to give a fair contract, something that we think he should accept. And then another team with more desperation. I mean, the Dodgers just gave Shohei Ohtani $70 million a year for a decade to come play baseball. And he's going to be old, Jake, by the time that contract ends. And he's also going to be getting paid in like 2040. Okay. So you can argue the Dodgers overpaid if that exists in a sport without a salary cap. But we may have Hal Steinbrenner logic his way into losing this player. And now if we lose this player, we have to assume this is the only year we have guaranteed of Juan Soto. So shouldn't they have everyone on the table to win this year? And if not, Jake, what other year is there where we would have that mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I think really, like, when we've discussed this a lot, you know, how I'm really never a huge fan of trading away prospects. But I think at this point in time, I'm not even saying to just go all in. Like, don't just get whoever just to get whoever. Like, has to make sense. Like, I see a lot of Paredes on Twitter, and I'm sorry, I'm not trading my farm for Paredes. I don't care how good he is. He's got no sprint speed, not very athletic, pretty much just a first baseman, not good enough to play third consistently.
To be clear, he won't cost the farm, because like when we use the term the farm, we assume top prospects. Paredes is not going to take top prospects.
It would cost you Spencer Jones, though.
It would cost us Spencer Jones.
That's what it sounds like.
Paredes
So,
is not a great player in this league at all. So
no, he's
no.
good. He's good, but people get excited about the fact he's 26. He's got a lot of years of control, but it's like, if I'm trading away Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez or anybody, you know, at the top, I'm trading them away for a really, really, really good player. I'm trading him away for another big, you know, player, part of the big three with Soto and Judge. Whether that's in the bullpen in a Mason Miller, or, you know, you're going out. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, we talk about Chisholm. Chisholm's not going to cost you those guys. Like, no. For those guys, there's not a guy that I've seen that is trade deadline available. The only one I could really think of is if they went out and got Mike Trout.
Mike Trout?
Yep.
How many players do we need that are a liability to stay on the field? I mean,
I
Mike
mean,
Trout,
but
if
Mike
Mike Trout was
Trout's value
available,
would be down enough to make
yeah.
it so that would essentially get you him. And I'm not saying I would do the deal, but I'm saying, under the guise of like, okay, yeah, we're talking about going all in, we're talking about just getting a rental or whatever. Mike Trout would probably be one of those guys if he was available.
But that's crazy. That's actually the definition of not all in. That's actually my whole point, okay, with the Yankees. This is what I want people to take away from what I think about the Yankees organization.
Mhm.
Just because you made trades, like multiple trades, doesn't mean you're all in. A bunch of organizations that are considered in win now mode or they want to win a championship this year are going to make trades, right? Now follow
Yeah.
me here. They're going to make a trade, but they're simultaneously going to say, we wouldn't trade this guy, and this guy. So you're not all in. Okay. You're by definition not all in. You might trade a Spencer Jones. Now, we believe in Spencer Jones, especially on this podcast. We think he's going to be a really good player. His development's been a little slower than I think we expected, but we really believe in this kid. But having said that, you can't call yourself an all-in organization and then you've got a list of 2 or 3 guys that you would just never touch. That doesn't exist. Jake, I'm going to be honest with you here. There is not one player, Dominguez included, for me personally, that I would leave as an untouchable. Given the Yankees' track record in developing talent, do I expect Dominguez to be really good in this league? I do. But you know who I definitely expect to be great in this league? The players who have already proven that they're good players. Okay? The players who are already providing an output. That's what you're trading for. So I don't think it's possible to look out onto the trade market and say, I think we can acquire this player because this one aspect of him has his value kind of on the decline, but we can really use him. And then you go acquire that player, whether it be Trout, whether it be Chisholm, Scott. You're acquiring these players because it's affordable. It allows you to protect the future and improve now at the same time. That is by definition not an all-in situation. That is I'm trying to win value and win trade situation, which in theory is a good thing. But given our situation, Jake, we're not here to win trades. We are here to be the best team standing at the end of this year. 2026, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I just like for me right now, and this is kind of a big thing for me. I don't love who is out there. Luis Robert is considered the number one bat. I don't
Yeah,
love that. So I
I
think you have
agree.
to understand that the trade that they're making, I mean, it kind of has to be Chisholm by default, and they have to go after Tanner Scott. But I think the only players that are out there that you could even feel like you got the most out of it with Spencer Jones, you would have to acquire one of the big 3 arms, whether that's Skubal, Miller, or Crochet. I mean, I don't think there's a bat out there that would be worth that.
So what
So
do you think Skubal? Because I think Skubal would be a phenomenal pickup for the New York
I
Yankees.
think all 3 would be phenomenal.
So let's just pretend, right? Let's pretend
Mhm.
Skubal comes through the door. What does it cost the Yankees, in your opinion?
I mean, you got to start with Spencer Jones. They're going to ask for him and Dominguez. That's not realistic, but they have the right to ask for him. So
Right.
the Yankees will come back and say, nope, not doing that. And then, probably end up with, I mean, let's think about this here. I have the Yankees prospects in front of me. Spencer Jones being number 2, which we'd call him number 1. I think Spencer Jones, Chase Hampton, Arias gets it done.
Okay, so if that's the case, let's just say that the
So you
Yankees,
keep Lombard Jr. in this case, and you
yeah,
keep Jason Dominguez.
but are we worried about who we're keeping?
Not
That's my thing.
I mean, not
Is
really if you've already been open to trading away Jones and Hampton, which are your best bat and your best arm in the farm. But I think that's what it would take, and I think that's doable. It's a matter of does Detroit give up on the season? I mean, he's got 2 years of control with Skubal, so I think it's more likely that like Jack Flaherty would get traded. But Skubal, though, like yes, he would be fantastic. Would be a great lefty for that rotation. I think in that trade, that could be a Nestor Cortez to the Tigers trade to kind of facilitate the money and everything.
okay, so do you anticipate, cuz remember, like you said, We're
Mhm.
not the only team that's going to be in on these players.
No.
Now, people have been asking, well, if Detroit is going to have this type of an asset, I mean, this is a star pitcher. If he's going to be on the market, Baltimore is another team that we've penciled in to be interested. And the players that they've put in their package, now, mind you, they haven't put this out there yet, but they're going to be asking for Jackson Holiday. Now, the question is, people assume that Baltimore, given what they have on their roster already, which is a very solid lineup, they might be compelled to send a Jackson Holiday. They might have the ammunition to afford to lose Jackson Holiday long term and bring in Scooble. So my situation right now and like where my head's at with this is that we seemingly talk ourselves out of how we want to protect the future of Dominguez and Volpe and Jones, but we also want these great players. You don't get both. And that's what I think a lot of people miss is that they think that we can go calling and these organizations are going to be willing to say take a Spencer Jones. What makes Spencer Jones as valuable as any of the players that like sometimes you've got to come with your number one guy if you want their number one guy. And I think that's the situation we're in is that we either do that or Jake, to your point, we hang on to the guys that you would consider big fish prospects. Exactly what we did with Volpe. You trade the complementary prospects, right? The 3s and 4s and 5s in your organization, and you go acquire a Scott and a Chisholm, and people feel like that's half baked. Like that's not an all in move. And you essentially weighed your options, and then this is the best you came up with.
Well, I think that keep in mind when we were pushing that move, I'm still pushing that move, by the way. That was when we were of the assumption this, starting five is great. This rotation's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were all pitching really well. I think you have to be a little concerned from today's, performance by Nestor. I think you have to be a little concerned with the way Carlos Rodon has been pitching. And I think that does give you kind of the go ahead to, make one of those moves for a starter. I saw way too many times, oh, they should go and get Garrett Crochet and he's going to be the guy out of the bullpen. I don't understand the logic there. I mean, are we sure Garrett Crochet tomorrow isn't the best pitcher on the Yankees? I know Garrett Cole is a reigning Cy Young winner, but he's not quite where he should be. You know what I mean? He has to rev himself up. I think we're starting to see him become himself again, but
He
he's
was
not
excellent his
quite.
last start.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but he's not quite Garrett Cole yet, where you're like, it's been 3-4 starts in a row where you're like, he's just fantastic. He's back. One start, great. I need to see more. And the thing with Crochet, this is a guy that was just, he's an all-star. And once again, the big thing with him and Scooble and Mason Miller, multiple years of control. So you're not just, I guess, okay, you're punting in a sense the longer term with the prospects, but getting those guys, you can have a little bit of both, which is why it's not just an all-in move, because getting Scooble for the next 2 years or Crochet for the next 2 years or Mason Miller for the next, whatever, 4 or 5. I mean, that's not exactly like kicking the can down the curb. As a matter of fact, I think it still keeps you contending in the future. And so, yeah, I think that the probably at the very least they have to go out. They have to get an infielder. And look, I'm not, again, I'm not sold Gleyber Torres wouldn't be traded, but if he wasn't necessarily moved for a guy like Chisholm and Tanner Scott, and you could literally just go with, well, you know what? We're going to have, because the way Glaber's hitting lately, not horribly and not amazingly, but, he's been like sustainable over the last, I don't know. I would take Glaber and I put Chisholm in the outfield. And I would sit Verdugo.
Well, to your point, Gleyber Torres in his last 7 games is hitting 350. In his last 15, he's hitting 320. Okay.
Yeah,
Now you extend that out to 30 games, he's hitting 238. So of late, Gleyber Torres is giving somewhat of an output. Now I know it's not enough of an output to
exactly.
put this Yankees offense over the top, But the Yankees have quite a few holes. And Jake, that's another question.
You have to be
Is that
creative with it. You can't.
you
You're
do?
not going to be able to plug every single hole. So I
No.
think going out and getting a guy like Chisholm that can play second, could maybe play third, can play the outfield. We know that he's currently like the center fielder out there. So I think it makes sense to try to get creative here, get a guy that can play multiple positions, but actually I'm not even worried about the positions as much as I am filling that leadoff role, which Chisholm can do. So I think that's a big one there. I don't know why Vivas has not gotten a shot, whatever, but I think that's a big one. And then, I mean, we already talked about Clay Holmes before we had that break, and you're only as good as your closer. And Clay Holmes, like, who trusts Clay Holmes in a Game 7 of the World Series? Like, I saw like Alex Rodriguez, he predicted the Yankees to beat, I think it was the Dodgers, which was, not my like prediction, but it was kind of like if everything goes the right way, the Yankees should go to the World Series and they should probably end up playing the Dodgers. But here's the reality though. That's the last team you want to see when you don't have a closer. Okay. And I don't care how good Clay Holmes was at the beginning of the season. The way he started to be lately, you can't trust that. And I'm sorry, having a closer that's so fragile about the way it's so like everything has to be so meticulous and like, oh, he can't pitch here. If we give him 2 days rest, he gets absolutely shelled. That shouldn't be a thing. I can't pitch my closer every day. You know what I mean? So
No,
I think,
I definitely catch your drift. And by the way, Jake, do you know I actually asked my dad this quite a bit. I would always ask him, what is the most important part of the season? Because like everyone just assumes like, okay, yeah, like October, September, those are the most like that's when we're all watching. So it must be the most important. And my dad
yeah,
actually said, as far as the competition between pitcher and hitter, what happens at the very beginning, the first month of the season, you can just chalk that up to a nothing burger. Okay. You just want to sustain 500 baseball and then kind of pick it up from there because the pitchers, at least physically, far ahead of offensive players. They just flat out, guys just don't come out hitting. Okay. Right out of spring training. It just doesn't happen. Usually you're a little bit disappointed with the bats. Guys come out slow. And then what do they tell us? Oh, it's the summer months. It's going to start warming up at Yankee Stadium. And then long behold, we see the numbers start to make an incline. And that's usually what we see. Clay Holmes fit that bill exactly. He comes out, arm was ahead of the bats, completely dominant. His ERA, by the way, Jake, for the first month of the season, zip, 0. Didn't give up a single run, wasn't giving up hard contact, movement was excellent. We had no complaints. But as the season's gone on, who's Clay Holmes after the first month of the season? He is a middle reliever with really good stuff. That's
yeah,
who he is. Nobody trusts him to close games. And I'll tell you right now, if I went into an October game and you asked me, who exactly do I want on the mound? Like, take your pick. Starting pitchers, middle relievers, closers. Who do I want out there? I probably, at this point, right now in the season, trust Michael Tonkin to go throw more than I do Clay Holmes. And
yeah,
now that's not something I expect to continue long term, but you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to, in October baseball, matched up best case scenario with the Philadelphia Phillies. That's the team I expect to come out of the National League personally. Philadelphia, because I think they're getting Miller. That's what I think. Now, you're not going to run into a team like that. Think that you're going to see Trey Turner, you're going to see Schwarber, Harper, and you're going to throw out Clay Holmes and expect to succeed. That would be silly. And I do think majority of our audience believes this, that the Yankees are short of a closer, the Yankees are short of a third baseman, and the Yankees are short in a starter. We started off the season, we had a lot of complimentary guys like Stroman, we had guys like Cortez, right? Schmidt stepped up, Heel stepped up when Cole was gone. And now we're in a situation where guys have kind of regressed to their means. And now there's a huge emphasis on needing a starter. But if we go all in, Jake, and go get that starter and pry him away from Baltimore, who's likely to go get a starter, well, then it leaves us with no bats and another good rotation. It's very similar to kind of what we arrived to the postseason with, which is a lot of pitching, and we don't have any bats. That's the reason, Jake, in my opinion, we haven't won a World Series in 15 years. We can't score when it matters. Okay. We don't have enough guys who can put a ball in the seats, can put the ball, give us some action, run the base pass, get athletic, get young. They just haven't done that. So, Jake, I mean, there's a real argument that the Yankees don't have a singular move, to your point, that they can make that puts this team over the top. It almost seems like they have to just take the best trade while also protecting players in hopes that they develop.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, the best thing that you could probably do, and I mean, let's just go through it right now. By the way, Jackson Holiday isn't the biggest thing about the Orioles. They have 3 prospects in the top 15 in baseball. That gives them a lot of leeway.
Sure
And
does.
they have Samuel Basallo, who's a catcher, first baseman, and Kobe Mayo, 12th and 15th. So, and then you have, the Rays, which is why they're interested in trading some guys, Carson Williams and Junior Caminero. Those guys are 3 and 9 respectively. And then the Detroit Tigers have the 10th and 11th guy. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're trading away a guy like Scooble and you're, the Tigers, you want big prospects. You want to keep this trend going. You're deciding to load up on your farm. That's what you're doing. With the Yankees, there's no point of loading up on their farm because, I mean, let's be honest here. They have the 300 million payroll to go out and get whoever they want. Whereas a lot of these other teams, they can't even get people to sign with them. They can't compete with the big teams. So farm system is really the only way to go. Now, this is why you'll see a small market team like the Detroit Tigers potentially trade away Scooble, because you'd be like, why the hell would you trade him away? Well, they probably see the writing on the wall. Get out ahead of it now, trade him at the deadline, get a boatload of prospects, and not have to worry about having that over your head where you have to pay him because he's going to want top dollar. The Yankees can figure that out in 2 years if they want to do it or not. So I think I've stood by this for a while. Pereira, a package surrounded by Pereira, I think is what it would take to go after Scott and Chisholm. So Pereira, maybe Glaber, maybe, but I think Pereira, Will Warren, and I'll say Jace Avina, who, by the way, that was the guy that I didn't know. And one of the comments, I forget who actually commented, they pointed out Avina was the guy that the Yankees got for trading away. Is it Jake Cave or Bowers? I think it was Bowers
It
to
was
the
Bowers.
Brewers. Yes. So
Okay.
Avina is a guy who they're very excited about. But he seems like somebody you'd have to part with,
And how do you feel after that trade? Because you have to remember, we're going to acquire, let's just say hypothetically, you acquire Chisholm, you acquire Scott. In my opinion, Scott's the closer. Okay. I don't even look.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely the closer.
They're getting
Okay?
the 5th, 7th, and 28th prospect. I think that's fair.
So, right. I agree with you. But what does that Yankees team look like? Because remember, that gives us a leadoff hitter,
Yeah.
to which I think we agree definitely gives us that leadoff hitter. It puts Ben Rice more than likely down the lineup, right? Ben Rice, by the way, is hitting 218. So he's definitely taken somewhat of a blow.
Yeah.
That is what it is. Now, having said this, the Yankees have to look at their team after that trade and say, is that enough? Okay, because the Yankees still have DJ LeMahieu at third base, to which in his last 7 games, Jake, his slugging is 095.
Yeah, he's
That
terrible.
is
I'm so over DJ
insane.
LeMahieu. It's not
That's
even
insane, Jake.
yeah, it's not even worth it at this point. I'm so over DJ LeMahieu.
His slugging's 200. His slugging is 200 the last 30 games. There's
it's
no
just bad.
way you can sit here on a show and describe that as anything close to mediocre. That's not even approaching league average. It is not. He'll obviously tell you that, but there shouldn't be a player on the field for the New York Yankees in any year
No.
where this is possible. Okay? So this is an impossibility. Seeing this, I actually thought to myself, we are in Aaron Hicks, Josh Donaldson territory. That's where we are with DJ LeMahieu. And someone actually brought up his defense to me and said, oh, Well, his fielding percentage is top 15 in baseball, as if that justifies what we're seeing. You've got to provide something on both ends of the ball. He's not providing anything offensively, and given what our needs are right now, which are bats, the Yankees needs more than a Scooble, more than anything that has anything to do with an arm and the pen in the rotation. The Yankees need multiple bats. They need to fill some of these positions. It has to happen, Jake. In order to win a World Series, you cannot have 3 or 4 holes in your lineup. This
No.
is the biggest black hole we've got.
Well, and I think it's kind of a toss up whether or not Glaber would be included. Is he hitting at the right time? But is he hitting good enough where you can sell on that? Be like, hey, look, he's, the Marlins have been obsessed with him for 4 years. I'll say, for the sake of argument, we'll say that he's part of the deal.
Okay.
And it probably facilitates the money anyway. So Chisholm and Tanner Scott, who, by the way, doesn't have as much value because he is a rental. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it trade's interesting because it starts off with a rental reliever who, you'll get what you get, but I'm not getting a ton of control. So it's not like I have to give you a ton. Then I'm getting 2 years of control of a second base, shortstop, center fielder who can essentially be a leadoff hitter, can get on base, can steal bases, has some pop. So that's when it makes the trade, like I said, 5, 7, and 28 with Glaber. So Chisholm becomes your second baseman at that point. If you don't trade away Glaber, then Chisholm, in my opinion, is your center fielder, and you tell Judge to go take a hike in left field because I don't want him anywhere near the center field walls. I don't want my biggest, threat at the on the offensive side to potentially get hurt like he did.
Well, the Yankees analytically think left field is the hardest position to play over there just because there's more ground to cover. And so that's been their logic as to why Verdugo has been such a necessity, because Verdugo analytically has been excellent in left field. Okay. And like eye test wise, he has been very good.
Yeah,
now, I know it's hard to talk about that.
Totally fell. That was awful.
He farted his pants in that Baltimore series. No question about it. But he's been very good in left field overall. And so putting Judge in left field, obviously, like, I know it seems like it would be easier to play left field than center field, but at Yankee Stadium, it kind of isn't. But I will say this, we are far past the let's put everybody in the position that most suited for them. The Yankees are in a position right now where they need bats. And if acquiring 2 or 3 bats and putting them in this lineup and having a major upgrade there forces the Yankees to put Aaron Judge in a situation where he defensively has to do a little bit more, I'm all for it. I really am. I don't think the Yankees can protect players and then also simultaneously say they're being aggressive.
No, I agree. And I think the thing with Chisholm that I really like is the athleticism. I like first off, decent arm strength for the outfield. Sprint speed's really good. I think that matters. That's why I wasn't really interested in Paredes. I don't like the 15 sprint speed. Why am I getting less athletic? I want to get more athletic at the deadline. Okay. I think end of the day, is he perfect? No. I think he's somebody who'd be better though in the Bronx. I do. And I think he's someone that can really help them out. He's 26 years old. Like I said, 2 years of control, could be their leadoff hitter. Now there's no sense of, okay, who's our leadoff hitter or whatever. He would be your leadoff hitter, full stop. Okay. And he could do it. Right now, he's got a 323 on base percentage. I'm not saying that's amazing at all. But what I am saying, it's a lot better than what we have. So
I love that we assume, by the way, that people are going to get better in the Bronx. And then they get here and then we say, oh, he just can't play here.
I mean, there's a good chance that maybe he can't. But I think I trust him. I do.
It's at least funny because, I mean, if we really do think about it, playing in New York is just, it's all dependent on someone's personality.
Well,
it depends on how they deal with pressure.
Shine. Yeah, I mean, I think he's made for the Bronx, to be honest with you. That personality would be a big, he's like the injection in the arm that you need, Like
the injection we need right now are steroids based on the way our lineup's hitting. That's what we need.
Because they still are pounding into the ground because, I mean, I'm sure they need to do the super shot and show LeMahieu and the bats pointed all the way down. Like it's...
Did you see the Yes broadcast today, what they were mentioning about DJ LeMahieu, which I thought in theory sounded like a decent idea. They were talking about the bat waggle, which I've mentioned about Gleyber Torres, right? Remember at the beginning of this year, he was just a a black hole offensively. Still isn't great, but
Yeah.
he was waggling his bat right before the pitch came. And I said, well, I played baseball and I know understanding where your bat is every time behind you matters in terms of having consistent play offensively. And they mentioned that about DJ LeMahieu. Before the pitch, he's just waggling his bat, and it seems like he's just trying to be free flowing as it gets. And perhaps simplifying your stance and simplifying what you're doing at the plate might help. But I will say this, I think when we're talking about a 34 or 35-year-old player in DJ LeMahieu, I think we're past the
I'm so
mechanical
over it.
side of baseball.
I'm
Like,
so
aren't we past
over
the
it.
mechanics? You can't tell me that a 35-year-old needs his hitting coach to tell him how to make an adjustment. Like
He's
that's
got a
for rookies and
472 OPS. I'm done talking about all these. Oh, well, if he, no. He's done. And I said he'd be done before the season started. I don't want to see him in the lineup anymore. I do not enjoy it. When I see him in the lineup, it actually upsets me because I don't think he's a good baseball player anymore. And the thing
and
that bothers
Cabrera's been
me,
bad too, by the way.
yeah, Cabrera's been
Cabrera has
bad,
been horrible.
which again just goes to show you. I mean, Cabrera's bad right now. LeMahieu's bad. I mean, Grisham has that random home run in his back pocket. He could play that card, but I mean, Verdugo's bad. Torres is hitting better as of late, like we talked about. Wells, I need him to do better.
Well, Grisham's ops, by the way, is pretty close to Volpe's.
Yeah.
Has anyone mentioned that?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a winning formula because at some point or another, if the Yankees are going to win a World Series, which is the whole goal here, right?
Mhm.
The whole goal is that we win a championship. The Yankees can't win a championship if Anthony Volpe doesn't step in somewhat into the shoes that they saw. Okay. Like this might not be a Trey Turner talent, but somewhere in between. Okay. Right now we're dismal. Yesterday he had an impact, had a huge, huge double, right? Scored multiple runs. We needed it, but we need that long term. We need to turn on the game every day and say that Anthony Volpe is an asset offensively. And as of now, Volpe hasn't been. He hasn't been what we needed him to be. And you can make all the trades you want under the sun. If he doesn't improve, this team is not going anywhere, especially deep in the postseason.
You know what I don't understand? We keep hearing about all these guys for the Rays, right? Like, oh, they're going to trade Paredes or Rosarena or whoever, right? What about Rosario? Because Rosario is on a 1-year deal. Like, I mean, he made I think the veteran minimum. It's really cheap, but he was on a 1-year deal and the Yankees already had interest. And if I'm looking at anybody, because the Rays were extensively scouting the Yankees single A, right? If I'm trading for anybody, I think right now I want the guy hitting 306.
He's making $1.5 million this year. Just for reference.
It's just a rental, but the guy's 28 years old. He'd be playing for essentially, he's playing for his next contract, right?
Right.
He's not going anywhere with this team. So does he want to get up, out of bed in the morning and be like, you know what? I can't wait to go to the ballpark so I can play for a team that it wants to sell half their team and isn't competing for a World Series when I'm on a 1-year deal. No, he's probably going to want to get out of there. And this is somebody who has crazy versatility, can play just about every position all over the field. I mean, right field, left field, center field, played third base today. So I'm looking at him like everyone keeps talking about all these other guys. I'm like, why not the guy that can play multiple positions who you already showed interest in? I think you get Rosario in addition to the trade I just was talking about. Rosario's not going to cost you hardly anything because he's barely making money, right? So it's not like they have a serious investment.
We also don't need him to play multiple positions. He could just be the starting third baseman. Because remember, he didn't come here because of the role. The Yankees now have an open position. There's no third baseman. Birdie just had a setback. Okay. That's been long reported.
Yes.
He's not going to be ready anytime soon. And as far as I'm concerned, if Rosario is acquired, along with the trade that you mentioned with Miami, you can absolutely make the argument Birdie shouldn't see the field. He shouldn't see the field. If Rosario's
No,
played the next 30 some games and then you throw Birdie in the minor leagues for a rehab assignment and then put him on the bench ahead of the postseason, you mean to tell me that Birdie is going to take some burn away from Rosario? I don't think so. I don't think that would be the case. In my opinion, this would be a great fit. This is a guy who can hit leadoff. Chisholm can hit leadoff. Then all of a sudden you would have two guys that you can justify taking an at bat in front of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Right now, the Yankees have none. Okay. Austin Wells, like with all due respect, I love what we've kind of broken down about Austin Wells. He's a
yeah,
great at bat. He can take a walk. He can work an at bat, right? Awesome. That doesn't mean he should be hitting leadoff.
no,
Personnel wise, we should have more that puts him in a position where we don't need to go that route. This would take us out of that position, lengthen our lineup, allow Wells to do what he's supposed to be doing instead of being a leadoff hitter. And the Yankees simultaneously get a lot better. So I really like that. I'm not in love with Paredes for the reason that you mentioned. He's not as athletic and
not at all.
well-rounded as what people
Rosario
are
has a
making him out to be.
93 sprint speed.
I mean, that's just can't miss.
Yeah.
For us and what we
You
need,
need more
that's can't miss.
athleticism. I mean, that's really what it comes down to it. So if they don't get more athletic at the deadline, they're not winning no World Series. Okay. There's not going to be, they need more athleticism. They are in the bottom 10 in ground ball rate. Okay. So when you're constantly hitting the ball on the ground, as long as you could beat that shit out, you're good. The problem is nobody on this team can beat any of that out. And so that's really been the issue. So the hope is that they'll add some versatility and some athleticism. If they do that, say in this world, Glaber went in that trade. You have catcher Austin Wells, first base Ben Rice, second base we're going to say Jazz Chisholm, shortstop Anthony Volpe. Let's see if he continues to play at a higher clip. Amed Rosario at third. Now left field, center field, right field. What do you want to do there? I mean, it depends. You can't use Judge as a DH because Stanton will be back, so Judge would stay out there.
We
Soto
are
would
going to
stay
get a
out
lot
there.
better when Stan comes back at some point.
Yeah.
So it's just probably not right away.
I don't see them trading Verdugo. I feel like they like him, but I would totally move on from him. I'd trade him before I trade Glaber, for sure. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think he's probably going to stay. And I think at that point, the Yankees are basically saying, you know what? We made our bed. We're going to lie in it. And if it's if it's good, then fine. It'll work out in the end. If it's not, then maybe we'll call up Spencer Jones, or maybe, Jason Dominguez will be healthy by the
I
time
was just
we
about to
need him.
ask you that. Do you think we see Dominguez by the end of the year?
I mean, he's doing outfield drills, and there's not a lot of work being done right now in Florida. I don't like relying on a guy that hasn't really had any sort of, I'll be honest with you, they're going to get a lot of flack, but I don't think he's going to make the postseason roster because I don't think he's going to be ready.
Okay. Well, I tell you right now, there's just a report 3 days ago saying that he's ways away from a return. Well,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, it's July 20th. We're at the deadline. Okay.
Yeah.
We're 10 days away from the deadline. So the Yankees have to figure out who's going to be in our circle here. Now, it's not just a return. It just being on the field that's not where the magic happens. You also need to return to form. That's going to take, maybe a few weeks. So he needs to get back on the field. And then by October, he needs to be ready to contribute. Now, does that happen? I think that's a lot to ask. So having said that, that leaves Verdugo, if he's not traded, it leaves us with either Spencer Jones or a deadline pickup. That's what it is. That's the situation that the Yankees are in, unfortunately, due to injury. But I'm not going to give them any
trade Spencer Jones. So with the two bats that I had, keep in mind, I would still think that, and this of course is a deadline where they're more aggressive. One of Scooble, we'll just say Crochet, Scooble, whatever. And to be honest with you, I could see them kind of doing a package for Crochet where, maybe they go out and get another guy from the White Sox. Maybe they get Robert, and then Robert goes out there, and who knows? I mean, I think probably not. That feels like that would probably be just like a one-off trade, like where you would be getting Crochet and you'd be giving up a lot to get him. So what would it cost to give up for Scooble or Crochet. Because I'll say this, I don't think they're going to get Mason Miller because I don't think they're willing to give up a Herschel Walker trade package or whatever.
Philadelphia
for a
is going to
reliever.
get him, in my opinion. Philadelphia is the team that has the most aggressive general manager in Dave Dombrowski in Major League Baseball. He is a win now
Then yeah,
general manager. He did this in
which will be
Detroit.
good. You should be rooting for that because
Yeah.
I don't care about how good they are in the World Series if I'm playing them because don't assume that you'll even get there. I care more about Baltimore getting him could be a problem. So I mean, if you're a Yankee fan, you definitely would rather see the Phillies get him than Baltimore. The last thing I'll say though about Scooble and Crochet, and we'll say Mason Miller as well. So in this case, we've already traded away Chase Hampton, Will Warren, Arias. Right? It was who did we trade away? Pereira, Will Warren, and Avina for the Marlins trade.
Okay.
And then the trade for Rosario.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say it's probably like, I don't know, the 19th prospect, Jared Cerna. So you still have your number one, your number two, your number three, your number 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, and everyone else. So you could definitely make this work. Jason
Well, how is it that
Dominguez,
you can't make all those trades? You can't go get Rosario, right? You can't get Rosario, Chisholm, and Scott, right? Those are the.
you would have to give up maybe 2 out of the top 10 for those 3.
So you just gave up 2 of your top 10 prospects, 2 of them, and it wasn't number 1, 2, or 3. Okay.
No, it was 5 and
So
7.
So you just acquired that. We're agreeing simultaneously that that would be a huge help for this team offensively. Humongous.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Now, how is it possible that we're agreeing the Yankees can probably go get Scooble, they can probably go get Crochet and Robert if they give up their top guys, 1 through 4. Like, not all of them, but take your pick. And those complementary players, that is where I consider an all-in deadline. Because if you really believe this team can go win a World Series, then perhaps you would do something like that. But if you don't, if you think the Yankees are kind of on the outside looking in, we're more of a name and not necessarily a product that can go win a World Series, well then, if you think we're the Cowboys, well then I guess we can go get Chisholm and Scott. Maybe you call in Rosario, maybe they bite, maybe they don't. And if not, you just let Baltimore go get Scooble or go get whoever. Philadelphia goes and gets Miller, and then they go out there actually giving up top prospects for the finishing piece to a World Series championship team. That's what they're going to be doing. We, on the other hand, made so many mistakes. There are so many underperforming assets, so many overpaid aging assets that the Yankees are now in a position where they have to say, well, I don't really want to go all in because going all in means losing this prospect, which, Jake, the Yankees have no reason to believe, none, that a top prospect of theirs is going to be a Gunnar Henderson of the future. They have no reason to believe Jason Dominguez in 5 years is going to be perennially, I can't even say that word, so I'm not even going to use it. You honestly cannot tell me that you're expecting to see Jason Dominguez at the All-Star game in 5 years. I cannot tell you. I think that would be a massive miscalculation, assuming that the Yankees have a Gunnar Henderson on the way. I think that would be a mistake. I think he's going to be a productive player in this league. I think I can expect him to hit 270 to 280 with some pop, but do I expect him to be a superstar in this league? I don't. I really don't. I think the Yankees are past that point. I think we've done it enough. I've seen it enough with multiple assets where they tell me, oh, Anthony Volpe, this is the one guy. You can trade all these other guys. This is the one guy just totally untouchable. There's no way to trade him. He's the next Derek Jeter. He's not going to be Jeter, but he's going to be something below it. That's more than enough for the Yankee shortstop. We don't trade him. We don't get the player we wanted. Okay? That's the situation we're in. So I frankly, Jake, I totally understand what you're saying. I completely get it. You want to win these trades. You want to go out there and take less risk as opposed to more. We don't want to take a ton of risk, but the Yankees haven't done enough legwork over the years to trust that saving for the future is worth it.
No, I get that. And I mean, that also is that a manager issue, GM issue? I think a little bit of both.
All of the above.
But yeah, I think looking at this, you got to be strategic. You can't just give up the top guys and then have nothing left. I think, we saw that that report. Remember the one that I sent you?
Which report?
The Yankees might make a trade.
Oh yeah. Wait, but why is it that we think that we can't trade all the top guys? I don't understand.
Well, I'm saying you can't just like overpay for a Chisholm, Rosario, all those guys, because if
They're
you
never
want
going to do that. I mean,
well,
those guys
if
aren't
you
going to
wanted
cost
to
a ton
go
in general.
after like Scooble and Crochet, you can't have already moved any of your top four, in my opinion. Like,
well, those guys aren't even in question to acquire. Okay, I'll tell you this: Miami's not even going to ask about Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez for that trade. Okay,
no.
Jazz Chisholm isn't even close to a top asset in this sport. Scooble, on the other hand, is performing like an ace. Okay, he is an ace of a rotation. They will be asking for Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones. Now, if they get both of them, I'm sure they're going to be asking, but that doesn't mean you're acquiring it. But those other players, those are going to be like Will Warren. Like it's going to be prospects that are in our top 10, but the Yankees don't use those guys anyways. So you can say they're in the top 10 all we want, but like how valuable are they to the big league team?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked that Brando Maia is 18 in rookie ball, ETA of 2028. Like he's essentially being the ninth prospect that young gives him a lot of value. So, the Yankees aren't going to be sitting there waiting for him to get called up. He'll probably be involved in a trade. I mean, I think that they probably move. All right, let's wrap the show on this. The top 10 is Jason Dominguez, Spencer Jones, Chase Hampton, Roderick Arias, Everson Pereira, George Lombard Jr., Will Warren, Henry Lillane, Brando Maia, and Brock Selvage. Okay.
Yep.
Out of those 10, how many get traded at the deadline? I'll start with you.
I'm going to say they trade one, and that's a joke.
Oh, wow. One. So you're not confident.
No, why should I be? Why should I be? The Yankees are going to wait until they feel like they can acquire an asset on the low. That team right there, they're not getting the value that we see out of that guy. We're willing to give up this, and if they agree to it, then he's a Yankee. That's the way the Yankees work. And other organizations like the Philadelphia Phillies, on the other hand, where we're predicting that Miller could go there, right? Baltimore can go get Miller. They might give up a Jackson Holiday. You really think that Miller is more valuable than a potential superstar in Jackson Holiday? He's the number 1 overall pick. Okay. However, that's their organization saying we have to get this guy. Okay. So we can forget the value. You can have a Jackson Holiday or you can have our 2 prospect. You need to be willing to lose a trade in order to get the player that has to come through the door. The Yankees are not willing to do that. So I say maybe one of them. I'm not even kidding you, Jake. And that's disappointing to say, but I'm not going to sit here and lie, just for the sake of, getting people to feel good. I mean, I'm just not.
Yeah, I'm going to say they trade at least half of them.
You think they're going to trade 5 of our top 10 prospects?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that they've done in the past 10 years that makes you think that? Because it's valid for us to have these takes. I was curious, like, if they've done something, or is it just the situation you think that the Yankees are in right now?
Situation they're in right now. Also, this is a weaker top 10.
Okay.
As far as being a top 10 prospect, what comes with that, I would say they have about 6 of those guys that really feel like top 10 prospects. The first 6.
Okay, so Dominguez, Jones, Hampton, Arias, and Pereira.
And Lombard Jr. Will Warren does not feel like a top 10 prospect.
Well, I'm not expecting to see 6 through 10 and even in the big leagues. The Yankees talk about these prospects like they've got Mickey Mantle and Lou Gehrig in there. They're not. Okay? That's these other... And by the way, a lot of those organizations out there in the world, they have lists just like this. Okay. You will not
Yeah.
see more than half of these top 10 prospects. They won't even sniff a
You
Major League
will
Baseball field.
see potentially a Chase Hampton trade. You'll
Okay.
definitely Will Warren will not make it through the deadline.
I think, I think Chase Hampton's the player who's going to be traded. And then if anyone else is traded, it's Will Warren. I think those two players are traded. And that right there in itself tells me when you're when 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10 are untouched, you didn't go all in the deadline.
Yeah, I think they're going to kind of look at this and be like, all right, we have a guy who's 18, ETA is 2028, and those are going to be the guys that they're willing to part with. And so I do think they'll trade half of the top 10. Also, I mean, we talked about it with the draft. You know, they drafted so many arms. The 8 of the first 10 picks were arms. So that kind of tells me Will Warren, Chase Hampton, guys like that, I think are definitely available. Brock Selvage is
That
100%
leaves
available.
three. If it's all arms being traded out of our top 10, that would mean three of them were dealt. And one of those guys is our number 10 guy, to which Salvage, I'm anticipating we will never see him.
No. Kyle Carr, maybe, but I doubt. I think he could also be traded as well. I mean, keep in mind the Benintendi trade, rental bat, very similar to Rosario, but Rosario's not getting any buzz. So it's not like you'll have to go out and offer a ton to get him. And let's be honest, I'll bring it up. I don't think the Yankees trade much for Benintendi at all.
Okay.
I mean, do you remember that trade? It was like
I don't remember the trade at all, actually.
they traded Beck Way, Chandler Champlin, and TJ Sycamore. And it was like, I mean, they were not, I don't think any of them were in the top 10. It was definitely like a bottom 15 of the farm system guys, 3 of them. So maybe that's what it is. I think trading away Cerna would be enough to get a guy like Rosario. But my point is, you're not going to have to give up a ton at the deadline to get guys that can help you right away and like the necessary moves. You're going to have to give up a ton at the deadline to go after a guy that maybe is stepping a little bit out of your comfort zone. But if you really do the math and you think about it, are ultimately worth it in the end. Because I mean, let's just look at, pitching around the league. Everybody started off good. I mean, remember the Pirates looked great. Now it's just Paul Skeens that looks great. But I mean, the reality of it
That dude,
is
Paul
that,
Skeens, man.
oh, I know.
Oh my
The
gosh.
arms in this league, though, the fact that you can even go and acquire a Scooble. I mean, if we were like, what's his overall in MLB The Show? It's got to be like 95. The
No,
fact you can
it's
go
not
out and
going to
get
be
a
that
guy
high.
like that.
No, I agree with what you're saying. They just Shohei Otani's like a 95 in that 94 in that game. So
Okay, so he's
just
probably
for
like an
reference,
89.
they kind of do it like FIFA. Like that's just kind of the way that they've done it, where now all the best players aren't 99s anymore. So I would say Scooble's probably like an 88, 89, 90. But I will say this, I do think Scooble is going to be moved. And in large part, based on what Detroit has coming through, if you take a look at the top 100 prospects, and I know this isn't a Tigers show, but it does pertain to kind of how the market's going to shake out for New York, is that 2 of the top 11 prospects in baseball are from Detroit. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about Max Clark and Jackson Jobe. These are, and this is another right-handed pitcher. So you're talking about somebody either A, that they can put in tandem with Scooble, or you can justify 2 of your better players in your organization are 19 and 21 years old. Well, you can actually make a bid for the future. And then plus, teams like Detroit, unlike the Yankees, they can't afford to have bad contracts like Javi Baez, for example. Javi Baez is
Oh,
just,
Lord.
he's been a joke in Detroit. Okay. And everybody can see that. For those of you who spend any time watching him, it's been atrocious. Okay. So it leads organizations like this to reset when they don't want to. And so that leaves us, the Yankees and the Orioles and the Dodgers and a lot of these teams, in a situation where you can give up your top prospects and go get a superstar like that. So it's going to be interesting. And I know you mentioned the Samuel Basallo from
Yeah.
Baltimore. They've got 2 of the top 12 prospects in Baltimore. They've got the ammunition. And frankly, Baltimore really is just arms away from destroying our organization. That's where they are. They've got the bats. You can argue they can get better 7 through 9, but whose lineup can't, right?
So
If
they've
their rotation gets better, we're in trouble.
so Crochet and Scooble have both had like injuries. Scooble is going to be 28 in November, and
Right.
Crochet just turned 25. I mean, if I could have either or, I'd probably go with Crochet. I like the
Really?
two. Yeah, he's 2 years
Okay.
younger. Um, I think there's also like they've had trades with the White Sox before where I feel like that kind of, familiarity, maybe they'd be more likely to trade to the Yankees than maybe the Tigers. I don't remember the last time the Yankees made a trade with the Tigers, if I'm being honest. I know it exists. They've probably traded with everyone to this point. But yeah, I think
Wasn't my dad traded from the Yankees to the Tigers?
was he?
Yeah. I actually think he was. Yeah. He actually was traded from New York to Detroit in 2007,
Damn,
2008.
that's brutal.
Yeah, it was like 2000. I think it was like 2007, 07, 08 when he got traded to Detroit. So, yeah, true story.
Yankees trade Gary Sheffield.
Well, hold on one second. I'm looking at our top prospects list. Jason Dominguez is number 25.
Oh my God, this return is terrible. I only know of one guy. The Yankees got Humberto Sanchez for your dad. That was like the main part of the deal.
That's actually kind of funny.
Humberto.
To be fair, my dad was like 37 at the time. So,
Yeah, they should have traded him though.
did you know that Jason Dominguez is that low on the top 100 list?
Yeah, and I just think it speaks more about the top 100 list. Because that's not
Yeah,
even.
this isn't the Holy Grail. This isn't the Bible, but that
Yeah,
is alarming. That's
I
weird.
always thought that was kind of dumb because, I mean, talk to anybody. The league is very high on Jason Dominguez. Like, he shouldn't even be on this list. He should be either close to number one or not on the list at all. Spencer Jones is the guy that I think the Yankee fans and Yankee prospects or Yankee, scouts are way higher than the consensus. That is what I have taken away. Spencer Jones is 74th. That's about where the league sees him. So they see him
That's
as kind of,
insane.
yeah. So, I mean, this is definitely a weaker, they don't
Our
have,
system sucks.
they don't have like an amazing farm right now. So, do you want to light that ablaze? Maybe not. Personally, for me, it's not going to get much better if you just sit there and let it build up. I mean, I don't really see the point of a lot of these guys because, like, what's the role? We're talking about Ben Hess as a guy that could start. Do you even think Will Warren could be in the rotation? I don't. And he was supposed to
Not
by
likely.
now. This is his ETA. He was supposed to by now be a back of the rotation guy, and then he won't even. I don't even think he's on the 40 man. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that there's
really what they think. Do you know what Major League Baseball? This is how poorly they view Spencer Jones. Okay, just for a frame of reference, we'll use Drew Jones. Okay, who is the son of Andrew Jones, right? This is a player who was drafted, I believe, number 2 overall by the Arizona Diamondbacks. He is 20 years old. His estimated time of arrival is 2026. Okay, he's 6'4", 180 pounds. This is a player who hurt his shoulder literally in batting practice when he arrived to camp after signing his contract. He had not touched the field, not one time, Jake, in a year and a half. He just now, after 2 full seasons after being drafted, is just now figuring it out at the plate. And the New York Yankees number 2 prospect in their entire organization. And we don't even consider Dominguez a prospect. Okay. So we consider Spencer Jones our number 1 prospect.
Yeah.
They see him 5 slots higher than that player who has not touched the field at all. He has not found a way at all onto the diamond. So again, like you said, Jake, this isn't the Holy Grail just because MLB.com says that these players aren't, all-time great or elite or at the top of this list. That doesn't mean that it is so. But I will say, I find it strange that most players that you would talk about if you want to mention how, the Trey Turners, the Juan Sotos, the Gunnar Hendersons, right? All those players who made a huge impact in this game, they usually didn't find themselves at the bottom of this list. So doesn't mean that they cannot be key contributors, but am I necessarily like strangling and holding on to players that don't find themselves at the top of this list? Not really. Like, I think this list has some value, just not all. And
Yeah,
this is alarming.
you got to be selective. You can't just be like, I like everybody that's a top 10 prospect. I mean, do your own research, of course. There's also, and keep this in mind, this could play a role as well. Valorio, who is the 14th prospect, I believe. Francisco Valorio. He was part of. Yeah, okay.
I don't even see this guy.
He's the 14th prospect.
Yeah, I just still don't see him because I'm looking at Anthony Roman.
So when is I gotta look this up now. When is international free agency for MLB? Because that is okay between January 15th and December 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So keep this in mind. You trade away Maeda, right? International guy. Henry Lillane, international guy. Valorio, international guy. Okay. There's already another bunch of international guys coming out. So the Yankees could very well repair the farm, and they could just use their international pool money and just pull a bunch of these 17-year-olds.
They can repair their bad farm. You know what this reminds me of, by the way, this whole circle jerk of a conversation that we're sitting here talking about. We're like, hey, if we give up, like, let's just say the Yankees give up Dominguez, Jones, and then Hampton and all those names, right? All of them, wipe them clean from the system because the system's not good in itself. Okay. It's just not. There's not a ton of depth. There's some top end talent guys there, but frankly, you can tell them to kick rock. And that's my opinion, right? You have a middle ground opinion on the matter. I don't. I am cool sending them all packing. And the reason being, Jake, is because you're talking about the situation with the Rams. Now, again, you can do a lot in the draft that doesn't have to do with your top prospects. Remember, the Rams traded away, and we won't talk a ton about the Rams, but they traded away first round picks in exchange for win now assets. Now, having said that, a lot of other fans of other teams looked at that and said, well, if this doesn't work, the Rams are going to be in jail for the next 6 years. They're not going to have any path towards success in this league where you need draft capital in order to get things done. And you know what the Rams did? They trade back. They hit on a 4th round pick. They trade back twice. They trade for a 1st round pick. Right? You can do these type of things if you operate like a well-run organization. Losing out on your top prospect will not kill you. Okay?
No, I agree.
Can't. It literally can't. I've talked about it before. Okay? Yordan Alvarez. He's the player that I use in this conversation a lot. He was traded away by the Los Angeles Dodgers. How many people look at Yordan Alvarez and think, man, he should be in LA right now? Nobody. Nobody even thinks that he was even supposed to be associated.
That trade was still stupid.
The trade was horrible, but what it goes to show you, Jake, is that you can trade away a future Hall of Famer and your organization can still be fine. You know why, Jake? Because we can spend money. We can spend money. It's not a problem. If the New York Yankees get rid of Spencer Jones, Jason Dominguez, Hampton, Arias, all these guys, Lombard Jr., people would say, wow, they really unloaded that system. So they must have acquired some win now assets, right? You're talking about Scooble. You're talking about Rosario, a lot of different guys you'd be bringing to the table. But the Yankees at the same time can say, oh, that guy expired his contract. We're in on him as well. How can you afford all this? We're the Yankees. We make $200 million more than the Dodgers do. And they're the second richest team in the sport. So you think we can't replace these talented players? We just described the Yankee system as okay. It's okay. So if you rid an organization of their okay system and you bring in a superstar player and then some complementary players behind that who are big league ready, well, what's more valuable, to have an okay system or to have something that can help you win one time. We've lost 15 years in a row. We need to win one time. So that's my argument, Jake. That is the finish of my argument, is that the Yankees shouldn't do anything at all to protect prospects, frankly, that'll be ready and good in 2 years. I think they're past that point. I think they need something that's a splash, not just improvement.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I think that like I said, I think they'll trade half their top 10. I
Okay.
think we kind of got a little bit of a taste of that when they drafted all those pitchers. I do think that matters. But anyway, that's going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media at JK Bogan, at Gary Sheffield Jr., and at Yankees Unloaded. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, folks.
Like this video.